Welcome everyone. Good afternoon and welcome back for our campus Charcha sessions. Thank you for continuing to join us every 2 weeks on a Thursday afternoon. I'm delighted today to have with me Dr. Deependra Kumar Jha, who's the Vice Chancellor of Adamas University. Dr. Jha is an industry veteran. He's been in research, teaching, and administration for more than 20 years. Uniquely, he has led three major private universities in the country. As the Vice Chancellor first of the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, often people refer to it as UPES in Dehradun. And then earlier, the Vice Chancellor of the GD Goenka University, which is located just outside Delhi in Gurgaon. Also, what's very unique about Professor Jha is that his PhD in engineering, in electrical engineering, is from Hiroshima University in Japan. While we, of course, have many people going abroad for foreign PhDs, it's rare to find somebody who's actually done a PhD from Japan. Even today, there are very few people going there, but of course, Japan has some excellent universities. So unique background that way. And of course, he's worked in a wide variety of professional institutions, including electrical utility companies, as well as academic institutions in India, Nepal, and Japan, of course. He's currently at Adamas University. I don't know if I got the pronunciation right, but it's just outside, just in Kolkata. And it's only 5 years old, but now has 3,500 students across engineering and liberal arts and management studies. So thank you, Professor Jha, for joining us today. And it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Pramath. Thank you for inviting.
Given your range of leadership experiences, and especially in three institutions, three perhaps very different institutions, where would you say higher education is today? And obviously the topic for us is the innovation in higher education. So I obviously want to go there, but what is your best sort of base case description of where we are today? And then we can talk about where do we need to take this. That will give us a good context.
Right. So once again, thank you so much for inviting. And when we see today the state of affairs, I mean, I would like to give it, explain it through an example. Last year there was a disruption caused by this pandemic, Corona, which we are actually in the middle of. In March mid, I think, if I remember correctly, we had to shut down, close our campuses. More than 1,000 universities, more than 40,000 plus higher education institutions. I doubt if we had even 1%, and I'm being conservative here, of the institutions were actually ready for this disruption. Now, this pandemic has actually kind of exposed our preparedness to the future. It was already there. I would not say that something that is going to happen in future, maybe triggered, expedited, but not necessarily caused by pandemic. There have been, we knew that things were changing. 10 years back, 5 to 10 years back, let's look at the things that used to exist and used to be so important to us are no longer relevant, no longer significant now today. So thinking that, and education institution used to think that probably we are immune to this. We will not get impacted. While the rest of the world will keep changing, we will remain as it is. The brick and mortar campuses, chalk and talk method of our teaching learning, and we thought that this will continue to eternity probably. The researchers say that the effective generation gap is less than 5 years. Effective generation gap I'm talking. So So what used to be more than 20
What do
years,
you mean?
the
What do
things
you mean
change
by that?
in less than 5 years. So no institution. Yeah. That means, if you talk about, two generations, age-wise, how they used to think, used to, perceive things, we always refer that, they are two different generations and probably they don't, gel together, and the thought process is different. Now that effective generation is less than 5 years because of the advent or advancement in IT, computer technology, and a lot of other things that's coming across the way. So thinking that, something that teaching institution will be able to teach someone, which is going to last for 30 or 40 years of their active life, it's something can be a waste, but it is not going to happen because things change. We know that in few years from now, I mean, the graduate of, this next couple of years who will eventually go to, workforce, join the workforce, are going to, will need kind of the competency which are not known yet. Many of the competencies. So I think in this sense, we need to do it. It's like preparing lifelong learners. How can we prepare learners? How can we nurture learners? I think that's where, the institution, the priority should be. But what is happening is, every now and then we come up with something, we talk about some industry, mostly, for the namesake, I would say. Mostly they are on the walls, we tick in the box, and the crux is still missing. We are not actually looking at the future things. So I would say this is a learning. This is a learning. One disruption and one disturbance, and we are all exposed. In the last year, you must have heard that how many institutions even could go online after many several months of this disruption. And forget about the exams. Even the case went to even Supreme Court actually. So we all are aware of these things. So even for us and even for the the globally, I think this is a time to actually introspect that where we are and look at the future more keenly. I would say two things which is going to define the processes, the things that we are thinking or our thought processes. First is innovation, and which is our topic of today's discussion as well. We need to innovate. It could be however small, big, anything that we do and everything that we do. We need to innovate. So innovation, and if you are innovating, then we should not shy away from failure. We might fail. 10 things we will try, maybe 7 or 8 things will work, or maybe even less will work. Others won't, but that's okay. And that is why the second thing that is important to me is resilience. So innovation and resilience. Resilience is like something, plan B, something doesn't work. How can we, again, be on the pedestal of that innovation, but still work on a different plan? So I think these two things will define the future years. Now I take a pause for your probably counter question.
No, I think you've captured it very well, Professor Jha. That and to reiterate your points, you're saying you need innovation, and I do want us to spend some time. But you're saying along with innovation, what you're also saying, you need some resilience, because inherently there is risk when you do innovation, and things may not work out. Things may things that you try out could fail. So you also need to do those innovations with some resilience, so that even if you fail, even if you screw up, you are able to recover from it and move on to other innovations. So that's an interesting idea of combining innovation and resilience, particularly in educational institutions, because our risk appetite is relatively low. So it's useful to think about innovation alongside having the resilience and building the resilience. But before we talk about innovation and actually to talk about innovation, where do you think the future is? What does the future look like? And Therefore, what would be the need? Where would be the need for innovation? And obviously, I'd love to get some ideas and examples from you, even as you are building Adamas, which is a completely new university. But what does the future look like to you?
One thing is, as Darwin long back said, that survival for the fittest. It's a matter of our existence, actually, and that's why we have to innovate. We have to do things which we may not have done. I would like to mention here that history and legacy of university, or say higher education institutions, can make us resistant to change. Everybody wants to, everybody talks about, changing things, but nobody wants to. Maybe because of the complacency, in the name of academic freedom, academic identity. And, we academician, I always say that, we normally love to live on our ivory tower. We love to be there. Now it has started, getting challenges, from the funding agency, from the industry partners, and future students.
Sorry, Professor Jha, if I can interrupt you, Professor Jha.
Even if say we are doing a research, let's forget about something.
Professor Jha, Professor Jha. Your internet is playing up. Your internet is playing up. Yeah, your internet is playing up a little bit. So you may have to repeat. You may have to repeat a bit, because I don't know if that was true for others also, but we lost you for a bit. So if you don't mind, now we can hear you again. It is a little patchy, but we can we can hear you. I know you are using a different Wi-Fi because of the power cuts, but if you want to just repeat what you just said, sorry.
What I say is, the history and legacy of universities can make us resistant to change. Am I audible now?
Yes, that part you are audible, and now we can hear you. Yeah, please.
So what happens is, in the name of academic freedom and, what we call academic identity, I normally refer that, we love to be on our own ivory tower, but now suddenly we have started getting challenges. It's no longer the case that, the teachers used to be first and final word for the student. We all understand that, teacher role has to change now, because, earlier in our days, probably, the lecture notes of our teachers used to be a Bible, used to be Gita, information someone is holding. There is no dot of information. So we need to also change our gear, as a teacher. We need to, the role that we are expected, we are expecting from a teacher is of a facilitator, not someone, as an information provider. Look at, everything has to, be taken holistically. Look at the PhD, that is being produced. I'm not, talking about every PhD, but look at, many of us are actually doing things just like tick in the box. You need 2 or 3 publications, whatever impact that, whether we are making that those publications, those research work are making impact or not, we are hardly bothered, right? So I think now we have started getting serious challenges from funding agency, from industry partners, from even future students. Now everyone, they know that, they have suddenly discovered, by the way, in this Corona period, the education has reached out to wider mass, I would say. The mass who were, marginalized section of the society, though I'm also, I need to put here caution that, particularly in country like India and even, sub-Saharan Africa and many other places where connectivity is an issue. But I'm sure that, going forward, it is going to be rectified. We are also making progress there. But things have reached to now, wider mass. we have seen the likes of, what we say public or private sector academy, things like Coursera, things like, LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, and the like. Now people have seen that, how can we, the education can reach out and how interesting it can. So I think suddenly the institutions have started getting challenged. They cannot just, continue with the kind of, faculty kind of things, they were having, and getting their students almost like a captive audience. That's not going to be the case now. So I see that things will definitely change, and it has to change. While at one place where we see things like the industry and academic institutions coming together, for example, AstraZeneca, Oxford, came together to produce a vaccine which is the most needed for this hour. So that's also happening, and there are a lot of history is full of these kind of innovations. I think very clear. I'm not sure what to do. There was a power cut even a few minutes back. Am I audible? Clearly?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. There was a little bit of a lag, but now you're back. It's not perfect, but I know that you are struggling with the power at your place.
Yeah, I mean, almost, yesterday it was perfect, but then this has to happen even, today when we had to,
No, your
session was scheduled.
No, that's fine. I think I'll urge everyone to just be a little bit more patient and try and hear you out. One thing you could do, Professor Jha, I know that you're excited and passionate, and this is normally your style. If you can slow the pace down a little bit of your speech, then those gaps will get smoothened out.
All right. So do you want me to repeat some of those things?
No. I think your points were clear. It was just that it's a bit straining to follow because we have to deal with the disruption. But it's fine. Please go ahead. Don't worry about it. I think you are in the flow and it's fine. No, you were talking about the industry, the Oxford Astra partnership and please go ahead.
Yes. But most of the cases, this is not happening. So innovation is inherently risky also. For institutions, for people, spending money there and time there when you are not sure of its outcome. It's risky, but that's the only way forward, I would say. That's the only way forward. So universities should be as rigorous in their approach and strategy. They are actually rigorous in teaching learning, I would say. And there are some good things that has happened, or maybe it should happen. For example, you were talking about maybe some examples. Give some examples. What universities can do at the moment. While I said there is no recipe that this is going to work best. But the first and foremost thing that I would like to mention here is let's build in, innovation system. Let's have a built-in innovation system. When I say built-in innovation system, right from from semester one, the universities should start having an institutionalized framework for innovation. Encourage the students to do, and maybe somehow we need to fit in the curricula that something that is not we are kind of binding it in the classroom or say anything that is already there. Let's make it open. The only thing is, and we can encourage people to come up with prototypes, come up with ideas, and then evaluate it at the end based on the impact that it has created or it is likely to create.
Okay.
And then connect it with industry, for taking it forward.
So, Professor Jha, some people are saying that I should summarize some of your points because they may be having trouble understanding. So please tell me if I'm summarizing correctly or not, accurately or not. So I think your first point was that in the future or even today, what universities are going to be really challenged by is all of the content that is becoming available that could be interesting, exciting, and more engaging. And not from a student perspective, they have access to much more engaging and interesting content. From a teacher perspective, it's not just their knowledge, it's not just their notes that are going to build their reputation, but really how engaging they can make the classroom for students who already have access to a lot of this knowledge. So I think that was your first big point around learning and teaching. Is that fair to say?
That's right.
Right. The second big point I think that you're making is around research. And I know this is something that you are passionate about, that it's not just innovation in delivery of knowledge or teaching and learning, but it's also innovation in research. And the point you were making is best illustrated by the Covishield that even I was the recipient of vaccination, which was developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca, which is a pharmaceutical company, together. But you're also saying that, listen, these are high risk type of innovations. It's not easy because you might invest in drug research with a pharma company, but pharma companies take risks that a lot of their drug research doesn't work. So I think I also heard you say that it's innovative, but it comes with some risk. So I think those were the two big points you made about what you are seeing with regard to how things are changing in the future. And I'll come to the last point you were making, but I was capturing this from earlier. So would that again be accurate in terms of what you are saying?
Fair enough. That's
right.
Fair.
So I think the next point that you were making, which is an interesting one, that was a slightly different point, but it had to do with the teaching and learning part. And I heard you say two things. One is, how can we make the curriculum and the experience for the student more open? How can they have many more types of learning experiences than just the classroom teaching by a teacher? So they might be doing projects, they might work on real problems, they might work in teams, they might go out in the field and do something. So a set of different experiences, and also then measuring the success and impact of those experiences, and also looking at the impact from a industry or application perspective. So that is your view of how innovation can happen, if you will, in the classroom.
Yes, I mean, that's one point, but there are a few more that
so please go ahead. So please go ahead. And so as we go along, I think the one thing that might work is if you can pause, then I will take a moment to summarize and then we can move ahead.
I'm extremely sorry for this glitch actually.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think this is an informal discussion, so it's
that's
fine.
Right.
I mean, we have to innovate, right? And that's what we are doing.
Right. So, that's right. So I think the first point, as I said, and you rightly summarized, is how can we give this openness to a student and for innovate and for innovation, and at the end, the impact that is generated through their prototype or whatever result that comes up, that should be actually measured and it should be connected with the industry. The second thing is we talk about internship, but the issue is how many of those internships are actually taken seriously. Most of them are to be industry-driven internships. Nowadays, it's like institution sending their student to industry, but I would suggest that it has to be industry-led, industry-driven, because ultimately the students are going to be consumed or say going to walk in the workforce, join the industry.
So,
So if
Professor Jha,
industry
how is this different from today's internship? Just help us
today,
understand.
yeah, yes. What is happening today is, there is a typical, timeline that is given in the window, for the institution. Maybe from June to say June, July, and August. This is the time available to them. Now, in the an industry, even if we don't know, the institutions, they don't know that whether this is going to the work that the kind of learning that is going to happen will be can be ensured during that time or not. Number one. So if they both sit together and see that what should be the duration, in addition to this, there has to be faculty internship. Very few universities are actually engaged in this. Very few. Less than 0.5%, I would say. But more importantly, the faculty should go on internship, a very rich one, so that they are able to transfer the knowledge in the classroom experience. So equally important is students and faculty both going to the relevant industry and taking that internship, so that we update ourselves, as a teacher, and then we can actually inspire the students. So I think this is one point that I wanted to make.
Right. So let me summarize.
The third point.
So let me summarize. So what you're saying is that in this model, it's not just pushing your students out. I did an internship in my undergraduate days at the Bokaro steel plant because I was studying metallurgical engineering. And honestly, अगर मैं हिंदी में बोलूं तो मैं हाजिरी लगा रहा था. I used to go there. I used to mark attendance. And there was a program I used to be taken from, because it was a steel plant. I went right from the raw material yard to the coke oven battery to the blast furnace to the steel melting shop to the hot rolling mill, the cold rolling mill, and each you were doing one day at a time everywhere. And it was really just a paper exercise. No fault of theirs. But IIT Kanpur was not really deciding what I was doing there. They were also saying, okay, sent you to BSL Bokaro, you do whatever, come back and you did your training. So I know that model, definitely. Now here's very interesting. You are saying that my IIT Kanpur professor should have gone to Bokaro steel plant, identified what were some interesting challenges for their students to experience. Maybe they should have worked in the more state-of-the-art steel melting shop that had been set up, or a new cold rolling mill that had been set up. Or maybe they should have worked on some project that was trying to solve a very deeply related defect problem, right? And then come back and said, okay, let's send our students to work on this, that, or the other. So that there's a much more integrated connect between faculty, internship, students, feedback, and that whole feedback loop gets converted. Am I over imagining this, or is that what you're saying?
No, I think you are right. So that's what I meant by faculty internship, and both faculty is actually engaged there, and the industry also has some stake there. Then it won't be tick in the box, as you rightly pointed out that traveling from this to other department.
Yeah. So there's a question from Vivek Kaul, and it's just to clarify. It's a clarifying question, but it's an important question. How will engagement of faculty with industry differ from consulting assignments, and who will pay for it in your view?
I think it's already. I think it's the teaching institutions actually. While there is an interest, from the teacher itself, faculty itself. But I think teaching institutions should pay for it, because ultimately, this is investing in their, people who are going to, pay dividends actually later. If we leave it to, the faculty itself, I think it is not going to work. It is not going to succeed.
Yeah, I would also
so I think investment should be from.
I would also say, Professor Jha, that to Vivek's first part of Vivek's question, I don't think this is to be confused with consulting assignments. It could be that you are already consulting with the company or the industry, and you also convert that into some internship opportunity for your students. but it doesn't have to be. It should be treated as two separate things. The fact that they coincide is only coincidental.
No, I think they are completely different. Consultancy is something you do in a domain you are already expert at. Now, internship you are going to augment your understanding, augment your upgrade your competency, and then to be able to fetch probably higher consultancy or better consultancy opportunity. So these two are different. Consultancy you do when you are already expert at something.
Correct.
So
okay, please carry on. Please carry on. Yeah, I think that point is taken. Yeah. So,
yeah. So the next would be, I would say, text-based, upskilling and reskilling. Now look at the things. They are important. Things like analytics, artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things. We all know that it's important in every walk of life. It cannot be just computer science and engineering with analytics or say artificial intelligence. There are multiple use of though it's not very clear at this moment. I mean, if even a teacher or institution wants to prescribe something, there are hardly enough evidence, enough cases available. So here we need to actually join hands with industry who are already using, and then bring that tech driven this thing to institution. Otherwise it will be only for the namesake. Artificial AI, I mean, talk to any institution these days, they will say that yes, we have expertise in AI, ML, machine learning, blockchain. But ask someone that how can blockchain can work in your, for example, you are issuing your certificates, for example. How can you can secure those digital certificates or something? I'm just giving one example. So I think not enough examples are available. So I think we need to tie up with industry, and whatever little knowledge is there, we need to bring it now to our classrooms. And so upskilling and reskilling has to be done with industry. We had to, even for teachers, we need to unlearn certain things, relearn, and then upskill from there. So that's the third thing that I wanted to.
Yeah, no, very interesting. So the idea is here to take some of the frontier, more futuristic technologies or concepts and models and bring in better examples rather than just teaching it theoretically and saying this is what it is. That could be somewhat more real and practical and understandable from the student and the faculty perspective. Otherwise, we are kind of getting carried away with the flavor of the month, and everybody is talking about data and ML and AI. I recently did. I can draw an analogy, Professor Jha, if you allow, with some work that I've recently done with the Indian Railways, where the chairman of the railway board said, "Listen, can we upskill our employees on AI, data, and data science, AI, ML?" So, one way to do it, and these are working professionals. So one way to do it was to give them a bunch of lectures. And I did line up a bunch of eminent academics to talk about this. But the other way we did it was we said, listen, you have to take this and go back into your organization and find a problem to solve using this. This may speak more to your previous point, but I think it also connects to this point, where of course there is a corporate example. But there's possibly, but the examples that came out of that, Professor Jha, was so interesting that I learned a lot. In fact, you could take those examples immediately and see how you can apply data and AI and ML to train reservations, dynamic pricing of tickets, capacity allocation of wagons and bogies and engines, optimization of routes between cities. How do you actually optimize during festival season? Because one of the big things that I discovered when I was working with them is that they have a real tough time planning for peak demand during Holi and Dasara and Diwali in the Indian Railways. So yeah, I think that's a great idea to, I don't think we have enough practical examples that we share with our students. And I think the larger point you're making is that even our faculty who are teaching some of these stuff don't understand the practical applications of these concepts.
Right.
Yeah.
The next point I would say is, we have, many of the institutions, they, boast this thing, themselves that, they tie up with several, international, universities and, research organizations. I don't know how many of them are actually active. That's a separate debate.
They are paper MOUs.
Paper MOUs, and, maybe few of them, maybe, hardly, we are doing few things to just say that it is alive. But what we don't do is actually collaborate internally. That is largely missing. Maybe a fear of this competition. Maybe different institutions are at different level, but collaborating among the institutions inside. Nowadays there is a concept of mentorship and this thing for some of the institutions, but not largely. So what is happening is, institutions are at different level of their existence. So what is happening is we are not actually, and even, the same or similar thing, we don't need to spend money on. That also can be optimized. Now already, as I told in the beginning, that there is nothing called captive audience, because you see NEP 2020, now it envisions that you have, academic bank of credit. So I think you just earn credit and, tomorrow, you go to some other institution and take it. And I would like to even say that, why only institution? Tomorrow we can have, likes of Coursera and, others who also, that there is a regulatory agency which can, and then giving credit. It could be from public sector or private sector academy, or it could be from an institution, academic institution. It can be from anywhere. It can be from industry, who will say that, okay, this much amount of work he has done. And then sum total of everything will entitle a person a degree. So that's why we need to actually leverage the strength of our institutions, and not, of course, there will be a competition, but then we need to leverage. Some of the institutions are, spending more on certain things. They are put in one area, but maybe other area they are not. So I think if we, make it like 1 + 1 = 11, I think that's going to, work probably more than, otherwise everything, you can't spend on, doing everything. So that also could be one way going ahead.
So Dr. Jha, very powerful ideas. So I want to slow down and capture these ideas. Okay. So the first one was more around internal collaboration.
Yes.
And the second one I thought was more about opening up to not external collaborations, but you're also saying truly make credit a currency, isn't it?
Yes.
So Pramath Sinha could design a course, and as long as that course is rigorous enough, I could offer that course as an individual. I'm just taking an extreme example.
Yes.
I could
that may happen.
Yes. So I could design a course. Okay. And it's a 40 contact hour course. It is delivered online. I have supplementary materials, assignments. It could be a course on setting up higher education institutions, which I know a little bit about. And so I offer that. And I submit my course for, I don't know, accreditation or approval or some sort of a review. It could be a peer review. We do peer review of articles. Somebody does a peer review. It could be an anonymous peer review, and people say, yeah, this seems like rigorous enough. And maybe I go through 2, 3, 4 cycles and I get a deemed approval, but, subject to 3 sessions of my course being offered and student feedback being collected, whether I'm, really doing a good job or not. And then it gets approved, and my course has 3 credits attached to it. And tomorrow, if one of your students takes the course, you give them credit. If somebody comes with you to you with my certification saying somebody has taken this course, you account for, so that gets into the academic credit bank stuff. So that's the idea that you're talking about. Very powerful. And by the way, I've been working with the government on this idea, and obviously, as you can imagine, there's some suspicion, right? Ye kaise hoga? We are always concerned about people taking advantage of these things. But
yeah, so maybe today we are not ready, but I think future it looks like happening. I mean, this is what, because you can't bind someone to those four walls, brick and mortar.
Yes, I would also like to add just two quick thoughts to this.
Sure.
एक तरह से अगर if you see, I learned all my physics from Resnick and Halliday. Now, my physics professor may not have been able to teach me the concepts, and I was not comfortable. So I basically studied from Resnick and Halliday, who were two professors sitting in Purdue in those days. I don't know if they are still alive. God bless them. But legions of generations of young people learned physics from these two books. So in a way, you were already transporting credits. Another thing that I would point out is in the pandemic, a lot of people have actually taken the Coursera and the edX courses. Of course, Swayam courses are already attached with credit. And other than the fact that they are IIT and IIM professors and other professors from India who are teaching through the Swayam platform, that is already happening, isn't it? Yes. Swayam is not a university, but people are saying Swayam course has a credit attached to it. And equally, people told students, go take this Coursera course, which I am telling you will substitute this course that we cannot deliver, and you get credit for it. So to some extent, we are already on the way to what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
But I think let's not, put a barrier only there. I mean, what may also happen is we have a time duration to complete a program. That also probably is not going to be relevant, I would say.
Yeah.
Because, someone can actually take 1 or 2 years extra.
Sure.
You can go to, different place, different industry and all, and then you'll see that, whether this is important for me or not, and then he will, try to take it. So I think this concept of a rigid structure of, completing it in N plus 2 years may also have to be reviewed, going in future.
Yeah.
So I think some of these things, but I would also like to, talk about the research part that you
yes, please
mentioned in the.
So I'd like to point out that we only have
the value of PhD, etc. Yeah.
I was saying that we only have 15 more minutes, and I know that you have a bunch of other ideas that you want to highlight. So please, I want to give you time.
So I would just try to, finish this part a bit quickly. So I think what we are doing, most of the institutions, we are doing one thing. We are taking, we are inventing something. We are trying to invent some idea, and then we stop there. We do not innovate. We do not take it to the innovation point. Now the point is, you are inventing something, bringing some new idea, unless you apply it meaningfully for a definite impactful outcome, you can't call it innovation. Maybe invention or maybe a discovery at one point. Most of the institutions, most of the research is stopping at that. Very few are actually going towards that same Kobe field example can be taken to innovation platform. So that's also one thing that we need to do. It's risky, we understand, but we need to take it to that level. Number one. Number two is, and of course, social innovation also will be, in that category as well. There are two things. Kind of innovation that we are, making also needs to be relooked at. What we are doing is we are actually, spending time in what we call product innovation, which is like, changes in things, which is, product and service we are changing. And then position innovation, which is like changing the context in which you are using, those products or services. So maybe the universities are doing up to this point. What is not, happening, most of the universities is two other, innovation, which is process innovation and paradigm innovation. So process innovation is changes in the ways in which the products and services are created and delivered. And paradigm innovation is the complete. We know that what is paradigm shift. So paradigm is like complete change in the mindset. You completely disrupt in innovation. So I think what we need to do is start looking at process and paradigm innovation also, if we have to contribute in a unique way in the future. I just remind that all of us is that universities do not have the responsibilities like a government or the mission of charities or say lobby groups or say zero tolerance to failure as the industries have, right? Or the economic imperative of private enterprise. We do not have that, but still we need to embrace that innovative approach and be a perceived center of innovation. Otherwise, in future, we are going to lose the industry, which is already skeptical about the universities, institutions being innovative, will further go down. So that's one thing that I wanted to highlight here.
So can I say that in what you just said, there are two key ideas that I'm picking up. The first is, don't call something an innovation till it actually has impact.
Yes.
Don't declare victory by just saying, I've discovered or invented something. True innovation will happen when whatever you've invented and discovered gets applied in the real world. Now, that's a little bit of, to use your own next analogy, a paradigm shift, because at least in the great universities in the world, academics have always taken the approach that, hey, I discovered gravity, what to do with it, you figure it out. Right? I mean, I'm maybe not using the best example, but I discovered this new gene or this new method to manufacture or create something, create a vaccine. Now it's up to you to figure it out. Whereas it looks like, given the pandemic, the Oxford and the AstraZeneca guys went all the way, and I have it now in my arm and in my body, and that created antibodies. So I think that's a very interesting concept but it is different from how we have approached it in the past. Some people have taken it all the way, but not everybody. It's quite okay to discover, write a paper, get it published, get it cited, get its score, and be happy with it, isn't it?
True.
I think
that's going to change.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And I worked in robotics 30 years ago, Professor Jha, and I dare say that a lot of the research even at that time was a little bit like that. And I'm essentially a doer, so I'm coming at it from a very different perspective. And I used to feel कि ये सब करके क्या हुआ? If it is not going to actually get done, then to say, oh, it can be maybe applied when human beings go to Mars. Now it's very nice to say that, okay, I've come up with something so interesting that one day when human beings go to Mars, it will be useful. But it's another way of saying that it is not actually useful for human beings on Earth. So anyway, I think agree that's the point you are making, and that's a very important point. I think it's a good way to think about people in India who are clamoring to do research, or we keep saying hum research nahi karte, we need to do more research in our country. I think that's a good filter to apply to it. And I think the next thing you talked about is, like, I think you almost talked like the 5 P's of innovation, right? Product, positioning, process, paradigm, and I don't know if there's 5 or 4 P's, but that you're saying there are many different types of innovation, and let's keep in mind that we also need to work on those different types of innovation rather than just trying to do product innovation. Is that the point? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's good to capture these. Please go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think in interest of time, we'll have to also see that how far we can go. So if we summarize even what is I see in the future, that those who can actually create MOOCs whether it is open or closed, that open, massive online, those courses, the MOOC. I think, as you said, that, I can have one course and I can offer, and it can be like, validated and, accredited. They are going to be the celebrity. Not necessarily you need to be in a campus. You need to be in a university to become a teacher. So I think this public sector involvement is going to be key. Not necessarily you need to join a university to actually be a teacher. I'm not talking philosophically that everyone is teacher and we learn from everyone. It's actually going to be the case. And those people, look at LinkedIn Learning, the industry stalwarts, they're giving, this thing. I see, Google already, 14% of the workforce, I was reading someday that, they don't have a degree actually, valid, degree.
Yeah.
Still at this point of time, 86% have degree. Imagine if it goes the other way. If we do not change our ways, if we do not start to institutionalize innovation in our universities and institutions, it can become, it can be the other way actually. 14 and 86. The education, the formal education can be only for the elite few, probably, if we do not act on innovation. So it's actually a question of our survival.
So that's interesting. So you are actually putting the fear of whatever God into us and saying, listen, don't rest on the past. The future is actually much more disruptive than you can imagine. And the steam engine and the automobile is coming, and your horse cart is going to be out of the running soon.
So I think, in a nutshell, if in interest of time, if we can talk about probably, following OB structure, outcome-based philosophy is a key. What is that we are going to envision that we need to fulfill it? So I think that outcome is not only for education. It's for everything. We also, when we were kids, we were adolescents, we had a vision that, tomorrow I'm going to, or after a few years, I'm going to become this. This is what we do at, there as well. So as we were talking, the other day. So I think OBE is the way forward. We claim and then we get it.
Yeah.
I think as, the OBE philosophy says that, there are 4 pillars actually. So the number one, the first pillar says that, say what you do. So whatever you are going to do, I think spell it, because unless you know that what you are going to do, you're not going to do it. It can't be, a coincidence or incident or something. So first is say what you do. The second is do what you say.
Do what you say. Yes, I was going to say
so that. First you have said is now you do, because you only claimed it.
Yeah.
So when we say, our institution is like, the vision is to become, blah, blah, world-class education or internationally recognized institution of higher learning, you do it now. So say what you do what you say. The third is, now you have said and done. Now, the third pillar is prove it. You have to prove that, you said and you said that you have done. So you have to prove it. And if you have to prove, you have to measure it. So everything has to be measurable. If you are innovating, it has to be measured through impact. If there are some generic things, something that clearly can be measured, so it will. And when we say said, done and proven it, I think the fourth and most important pillar is improve it. So even if you have done whatever you anticipated earlier, but I always say that no institution can equip the students with a skill set or say knowledge, skill, and attitude, which is going to last 30, 40 years of their active life. So I think what is more important is improvement, continuous improvement strategy. And that's what OBE philosophy is. So I think every institution got to believe in and start implementing this OBE based model.
Very
so that we keep a track, check on our doing. Whatever we say, we should not deviate from whatever we do. So I think that's also important.
Yeah, I think this is true for our life too, for all of us.
Yes.
But
for life.
you're applying it to institutions, but it applies to us as individuals, as professionals, as family members. Professor Jha, this has been fascinating, and the problem with all my campus Charcha sessions is we could keep doing the Charcha for another hour and we would never exhaust. But I think one way to do this is to also whet people's appetite for the next time we can get you. And before I end, though, I do want to take a couple of questions from people who have been very patiently putting in comments. One interesting comment which takes us back to where you started is from Anant Srivastav. He says, a common guidance that comes along with innovating is to build a plan B while working on your plan A. However, does having a plan B subconsciously limit the inherent resilience in the innovator to make plan A work? So he's saying, no, this is not resilience. This is actually limiting the resilience and to commit to it with absolute focus. And of course, he's saying, to go for it.
I got the point actually. So I knew that, this thing may come.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. We are not saying at this moment is, let's start working on, two plans simultaneously so that one doesn't work, the other is there. Sure. That's not the point here. Point is you focus on one thing because your conviction is there. But what if it doesn't work? 1%, it doesn't work. Like we were actually tuned to this physical classroom method. One day, we could never, in wildest of our imagination, we would not have thought that, one day all will have to, sit at home, for more than a year. But then it happened. And then the resilience, they could quickly come to the next plan B. People always say that, this physical, this thing, all the senses work, so it's not only eyes and ears, which actually is in action when you are in a digital classroom. But still, I would say what we have done is we have, the most of the institutions have just, brought those physical classrooms, on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever. That's not, that we are doing, innovation or something. That's only a mode which was available, we implement. But there are different, inherent issues. How can we engage people in, digital way of classroom? Those things will have to come through our attitude of learning. Quickly adopt something or devise a plan B. Not that start from day one, work on two plans. So that's what I wanted to clarify.
No, that's very good. Thank you so much. And I think one other last question, as we just run out of time. I think these are related questions. So Professor Om Prakash Chhangani, who is the Vice Chancellor of Apex University, asked the question, how are higher education institutions, particularly government institutions, are bogged down in terms of innovation and creativity? He's talking about government institutions being bogged down. And Sanjeev Mishra, professor at Allen House Institute of Technology, is saying, how do we actually innovate and fulfill the industry needed skills, industry need and student skills beyond the curriculum of the universities in an affiliated institution? Because, I presume he's talking about the fact that their curriculum is limited by affiliation. I think both these questions relate to the same point, right? Given the heavy regulatory constraints that institutions are bogged down by, does it still leave room for innovation and creativity? You've been involved in private institutions, so they might think, hey, you have the luxury of doing whatever you want. What about us? So what would be your guidance to them?
I think in current scenario, I agree that there is very little room. There is a room actually. You can always go content beyond flavors or going beyond what is prescribed is always possible. But then if there is no credit involved or those things are not there, I think students also they don't take it very seriously. Those questions are always there. Those points are. But I think moreover, I think this is going to change. It's a market will correct itself. When we start becoming absolute, all obsolete, already, industry say that, the graduates are not employable. If it goes to a level, I think even the government and other sector regulators will have to think through. If the student stop going there, that, if the employability is not there because world is moving fast, we are not going to catch up. We know that, how many institutions are, getting closed every year. So I think survival for the fittest game actually is applicable everywhere actually. So this will also get changed. It's only a matter of time. I think it has to change. We have to give that freedom. Particularly I would have talked about this, the liberal arts, kind of future universities, which we never got time actually, that what kind of universities could be there. I think liberal education is one thing, which I think you have been actually expert. That should be not only the liberal, I'm talking one program on liberal education. It should be like, it should be the way of education act. How can we start going beyond the measure?
Yes.
Right. So those things will come. I think, market will correct itself.
Yeah.
And it's bound to change.
Yeah. On that hopeful and inspirational note, let us bring this hour to a close. Professor Jha, this has been, despite some bad bandwidth, we made so much out of this conversation. I think from the comments on the chat, people were really fascinated and really valued your comments. So thank you so much. Thank you for so freely sharing your ideas. I'm certainly going to remember these ideas. I might even copy some of them in spreading the word, but I think this is all in the higher cause of what we are all trying to do here. Wish you all the very best. Adamas is very lucky to have you, and I hope you can implement some of these ideas. But thank you very much for joining. I'd like to thank the audience for joining, and I'd like to see you all again soon on a Thursday afternoon at the next Campus Charcha. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for inviting. Thank you.
Thank you.